Well, I've just been told in my ear, in the best tradition of live television, that I am, in fact, live, and we can carry on with the show. I can't see you myself, but I'll just go ahead and hope for the best. And what a best it is, because our next speaker is John Willshire. He runs Smithery, I should say, which as an innovation consultant. It's an innovation consultancy rooted in the processes and philosophies that John has developed over the past 10 years to inspire ideas and ignite imagination. You may know of artifact cards, a physical and in fact now a digital tool to capture and source ideas. But today, John gives us another gift in the form of Zenko Mapping, which is a simple but powerful framework for planning the operations of people and the space around them. It's a way of charting progress, anticipating issues, and making sure you're always doing the next right thing. So over now to John Willshire for an introduction to Zenko Mapping.
Hello, good afternoon, London, Britain, the world, and so on. Just let me play you a quick thing. Hello, my name's John and I run Smithery. Here are some creds. Now, I can do that because this talk's recorded, and if you want to know what was on those slides, you can go back and slow it down later. But it gives me more time now to do two. Okay, wait. Let's just talk about the notion of the recorded talk. This original Zenko Mapping film I did late last year. And it's good as an introduction to the general form, but for World Information Architecture Day, I wanted to do two things. So just to draw out particular points about how the thing was constructed in the first place, so maybe go back into the history like this, and then also identify different ways of using it that might be more appropriate for the crowd today. I'll just keep dipping in and out of the film to do that. I also wondered about adding a third layer of filming to the thing so that I could talk about what it's like to put together the talk around the talk as well, but I think that's a bit much. I mean, it's not Inception. Just get on with it. But it gives me more time now to do two things. Firstly, I'd like to tell you a story. And secondly, I'd like to teach you a new tool for thinking. The story is about puppies and boxes and light and liquid and research and development, about being adaptable and about doing the appropriate thing at the appropriate time. The tool will help you to see how to do the next right thing. Now, I know that sounds like a Frozen lyric, but you're wrong. It's Frozen 2.
And do the next right thing.
But this is a tool I've been working on for 6 or 7 years, with various different clients and various design schools and business schools. And I think it'll be really useful for you to think about even just how you answer some of these questions in the times in which we now live, because we're all going to have to adapt on an ongoing basis. And this here, for me and you, is one such circumstance. I mean, this feels wrong. I like being on a stage. I like giving talks on a stage because in the moment you get a reaction to the ideas, but you also have the moments before and the hours before where you're watching other speakers. You can evolve threads from what they're saying. In short, I love all of the peripheral context that you get from doing talks live. And from challenges come opportunities. So I started thinking about what happens if I tell this story and teach this tool differently than I would normally. What can I make with the tools of creativity that I have here at home? Because hey, we're all making more things in the home nowadays. Hands up the bread crowd. And how am I going to manage all this whilst we look after a 10-week-old puppy as well. Say hello, Bramble. Hello. So, as promised, a story and a tool. The story starts with Mr. Mark Earls asking me, "Do you fancy doing that origami fox thing?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." Now, the fox is called Zenko, and foxes are found outside. So I was doing some work for a Japanese client once, and it was all about the hidden powers of technology and the things that happened in the background when you couldn't really see them, and how you made people feel safer with that, like it was working for them, not against them. So I was investigating Japanese folklore, just trying to find some suitable concepts, and came across yokai, which is the collective name for fantastic beasts, creatures, ghosts, monsters. All of the things that do things to an environment that you can't see, that you can't explain. So within Japanese culture, yokai tumble out in lots and lots of different things. So you see them all the time now in anime or Pokemon Go or whatever. And my favourite of all the yokai that I read about were the kitsune, the foxes. One of the interesting things about kitsune is they are shapeshifters. Over time, they can learn to assume the forms of people. Kitsune can also have up to 9 tails, which they tend to add with experience as well. So the more tails you see on your kitsune, the more experienced it's going to be. Then within kitsune, I became intrigued by the Inari foxes, or Zenko foxes. Good foxes. Mind your head. The Zenko, these good foxes, tend to use the powers for good, not mischief. So they act as messengers and take information between domains, or they act as guardian spirits. So these shape-shifting guardian spirits that act as your protector, that help you out with their 9 tails, became the perfect name for a new process I've been working on, called Zenko Mapping. So, Zenko Mapping, the coffee shop introduction, which is generally how I tend to introduce people to this model, but of course we can't do that as well as we used to. These are some of the examples of the times that I've done it with other people. I just tend to keep them and put them in a wallet. So there are 2 axes. People and space. People, space. So you're probably thinking, why put people and space on the axes? So 8 years ago, 2 friends, Alex and Rob here, each told me to read a Steward Brand book, except they didn't know each other. The books were different. The books were originally published about 8 years apart and 2 decades previously. So when 2 people tell you to read things out of time so much, you think, oh well, I should probably read them together and just see what happens. When I read each book, they were very clearly closely connected. So they both had a version of the pace layers diagram that you'll be familiar with perhaps. Except one, in How Buildings Learn, was related to material construction. So the structure, the services, the internal walls, the spaces, the desks inside. So up through those different layers. And the other was social construction. So from the faster fashion layers along the top, all the way down to the long, slow cultural ones, the work of all people. So seeing these 2 things together made me think, what if these 2 models are connected? The fast is paired to the fast, the slow to the slow, like the gears of a bike. And so I put them together in a little animation and just began to think through the implications of these things spinning through time, the fast powering the fast, the slow powering the slow, and all of the connections in between, and actually how digital and the internet changes the way that those different things bump into each other. That's a whole other story. But it became the central way, putting people in space on the 2 axes, for me to think about things, think about the work we're doing, how to see the world, even all the way through to organising the library. So it's arguably most useful and accessible, however, in this, the Zenko map framework. Let's get back to the map and other John. So we then split those two things up into 3. Do some nice dotted lines. So then, on the space axis, we have sketch, scaffold, structure. So, a sketch, this is a sketch. Right, this is just sort of an early stage demonstration of something that you're doing. It's very quick, it's very easy to do and realise in the world. Once you've decided that you want to do one of these ideas, you go, right, okay, so what's it going to take? You move into the scaffolding thing. So what are the requirements? What are the implications? What are the knock-on effects? What does that look like if we actually pressed ahead and did it? And then once you've decided to do it, you then get into the structure, so the actual building of the thing. Then on the people axis, we have team, qual, quant. When you think about the people axis, you've got the team, the people who are working on something all the time. So we see everything, all the information that's coming through in the development phase of it to work out what's going on. But they don't know everything, and that's why they talk to people. And so yes, that can be formal qualitative research and talking to users and potential customers, or it can be talking to other people in the business. Or it can be talking to academics or journalists or people who have other opinions about this space that they didn't know about. So this qualitative information comes back into the team to help guide that journey. But you can't talk to everyone, and that's why we use quantitative data. So quantitative data is basically the representation of behaviours at scale. So you're not talking to everyone about what they're doing, but you're getting the data back, which allows you to understand more about what's going on. So quant is the what and qual is the why, and so the combination of the two helps the team develop better. Now, the way this works as a model, you start here, for instance, if you're doing something new, you get the team together for a sketch session, say, what would we do if? And so you say, right, okay, so that is our starting point, we have that session, we develop some ideas, and we go, right, okay, what do we do now? You've got 2 choices. You can either research or develop, improve or share. If you think you've got the knowledge in the team to say, right, okay, we can make a better version of this, a prototype to take into the scaffolding stage to help us understand more about it, hey, great, do that. You go up into this, and so that the same team are working on the scaffolding. However, my kind of personal preference is, look, you should always take whatever it is you're working and share first, research a bit. So you might even just take it to other people in the business and say, hey, we were thinking of doing this. Have you seen anything like this before? What do you think of it? What's going on? You might take it out to users and show them some early scabs just to sort of get a sense of how people react. Now, various things happen from that point. Now, they might give you information that sort of sends you right back to the drawing board. And you go, well, we didn't know that before, but we do now, but we can improve how we work down in this early stage process because of it. They might say, you might get an indication of, well, there's actually some data out here on behaviours at scale. So even though we've not made something, maybe it's an old version of our own product, maybe it's something else that exists in market, but we can get a sense of the sorts of behaviours at scale which complement the stuff that we are finding out in the qualitative phase. Or you might say, actually, this has helped us do the scaffolding thing, so that's fine, so we can take it up to there. Or you might say, this is great, we can run a co-design program and work with the people we talk to on the scaffolding thing and work through the implications and so on. And you can see how there are lots and lots of different options. You're always, back to Frozen, doing the next right thing, because there is no right or wrong process. There is the sort of whatever the right thing is to do at the right moment, and you will only know when you get into that phase. So one journey might be like that. The next journey might be like that. Neither are right nor wrong. And you're not locked into this idea that time has to be on the x-axis of your model. So if you think about lots of classic design models, so maybe let's pick on the double diamond. Time is the thing that goes through a lot of design models. So it's always like we'll start with nothing and we'll end with perfection. But we all really know that projects go like this. And then you get stuck and then eventually get to this thing. It's not as neat as this. So don't work in models that make you pretend it is neat and easy. Work in a way that allows you to do the next right thing. So, what can that tell you when you start doing lots of it? With Zenko mapping, you can start mapping lots of different things across it and learn different things and be able to just see things which are going on. For instance, you might use it as a retrospective for projects. So you just say, right, okay, so what did we do in this project? Where were these things happening? At what stage did we make decisions? And you draw the map of it like that and go, oh, okay, so I can see how we got to there. But maybe we should have been picking up more of the stuff that's over here instead at an earlier stage. It just helps you think about sort of like where are we not going rather than where we are. So something different you might do is like pull apart existing things and say, right, okay, so that up here, this is a thing. Okay, how did we get to that? What were the decisions that led from here? What data were we pulling on? What was our process for getting to this through this different area? How is this different? What's this here? Why was there a blockage here? Why does it take so long to get to different places? So I thought I'd drop back in here to show you another practical way of using the framework. It's a rapid discovery process, and I've just anonymised an example that we started on this week. So you start a new project and you think, well, okay, so what information is there? What do I need to know that you know? So you might start over in the quantitative section and think about sort of like, okay, so what's the competitive landscape? If you'd done nothing else, what is still going on out and around there? Then you might do some user or expert interviews or gather some previously existing ones and access the write-ups and read those. You might think about what market sizing stuff has been done, so going out into the market and testing what's the appetite for this idea. You might look at overview of current usage, you might look at the revenue figures from the top and so on. So basically starting with those familiar questions around the edges of the Zenko map allows you to drop things into the middle and go, oh, okay, so what sits here? What else do we know? What other information can you give me? But crucially, like any map, sometimes the spaces that have nothing in them are more interesting than the spaces that are populated. So you say, why don't you have any early stage quant data? Why don't you have anything that's telling us the insights of the internal stakeholders? What's missing here? So whenever you use a visual map like this, it's about gathering the stuff that you know about, but it's also about thinking about the stuff that you don't know about yet. Back to the other guy. Overall, though, Zenko mapping becomes a place where you can see all the different instances of things that are coming up. You can start categorizing those into issues and say, right, we've got a problem here. What does that look like? And then above that, you can start designing interventions and going, right, okay, so how are we going to change that here so that we can work better moving forward? So I'd like to leave you with 3 key ideas after this. The first one is visibility. Zenko mapping is one of 10 tools to transform the way that you think that we use here. And at the heart of them all is this idea that information is light, not liquid. And by that, I mean that instead of thinking about information in the terms of liquid, so data is the new oil, let's store it in the cloud, let's have a brainstorm. All of that language treats information as homogeneous liquids. Doesn't care about the information itself, it just thinks about the containers and the channels through which you push it. But if you change the way that you think about information to think of it as light, so individual pixels and particles that come together to fire the imagination, suddenly every time you are working with information you're thinking, how do I help people see something different? How do we get a new perspective? How do we frame something? It just changes up the way that you think. So as you've seen from Zenko mapping, it's a visibility map. It just shows you things in the organisation that you didn't realise were going on and that you might want to change. The second thing is about practicality and basically making things. So this whole talk has been made on kit that I've got lying around the house that I just decided to do instead of filming to a Zoom camera and then just letting people think that they're in the presentation they would have been at the conference. I think the key for me here is if you're going to take up 20 minutes of people's time, your time in this occasion, or actually any time you're sort of like putting in a meeting with colleagues at work or anyone else, going, how do I make the most of that time? How do I make something that really gets across these ideas and makes visible what it is I'm trying to do? And then the third point is about adaptability. So adaptability really is the key word behind not just how in these times and other times you should apply yourself to the world, but adaptability is the reason that the Zenko foxes and the kitsune are not the only foxes in folklore around the world. We have them, they have them in Russia, North America, wherever you like. Because the red fox is the world's most successful carnivore for a number of reasons. It's got a really varied diet. It'll eat anything. Plants, animals, fish, mollusks. It'll also thrive in any environment. Any continent. Hot, cold, icy, luscious and green, in the middle of the city to edge lands out here inside the towns, into the deepest, darkest countryside. Doesn't matter to the fox. So they're happy to be independent and solo, or live in massive, multiple family groups with lots of adults in it. Whatever the territory will allow, really. All this means the fox doesn't have a specialist niche. It competes against other specialists, wherever it is, on their terms, in their environment. So, I'll do fine here, thanks very much. It's not trying to force the environment to adapt to them. And that's a lesson we can probably all learn at the moment. Adapt to what you've got. Do the best you can. Thank you.
And joining us live after that, it's John Willshire. Hey, John. Oh, I still can't hear anything.
Can you hear something now?
Oh, now I can hear something. It was going so well this morning, and
it's remembering how to switch all the things off and all the things back on and all that.
That's computers for you. Thanks so much for that. Apologies if anyone missed the beginning of John's video there. It sounds like some people did, but it's all right. We'll post the whole thing up afterwards after this. So I've got a question for you. You've opened there with a lovely turn of phrase about information being light, not liquid. I wonder if you could sort of dig a bit deeper on that.
Well, yes. How long you got? So basically, I was thinking of just how you bring information together and what you're trying to do by doing that, and what you're presenting to people and having a view of things, and all of that language around. I see this, or sort of like what's your view? What sort of like vision do we have, and so on. So there's a lot more of the kind of like the active language when you start treating information as light, as it's more passive language. And actually there was where was it? So it's an article that Christina Wodka wrote ages ago, but it mentioned, what's his name? I've got it here actually, because I thought you might ask something about this, but it was a quote from Richard Saul Wurman, where he talked about sort of like, in the origins of information architecture, about this tsunami of data. There's a tsunami of data coming, and so on and so forth. And I don't find that particularly helpful. It just scares people. And it's sort of like, and it's positioning a discipline or a group or an individual as someone that's sort of like, oh, this is fearful, you should be scared of this, only we can help. I just feel that if you lean into the kind of like the idea that information is light, you sort of like, you focus on more on the moment, what it's doing, the view you're trying to present to people, and the sort of like, and what you are trying to set on fire inside them.
Cool, thank you. We have a question in from RJ9588, who's
RJ,
old RJ, yes.
Old RJ.
Curious to know how do you know whether you're in the sketch, scaffold, or structure phase, and would there be arguments between stakeholders on that?
Yes, there are arguments, and that's the good thing. So actually, on the is everyone on the Miro board? Has everyone got access to that?
Everyone has access.
Well, maybe if they can see it, I can screen share it here. Hang on. Let's screen share the right Miro board. Yeah, that's the right one. Share that. So if I share this and then zoom into here, can you see
That's right.
that? Yep. Excellent. Technology is working. So the boundaries of this sort of, you might start and say, okay, so what are we talking about here? What are the boundaries of our world? So you go, okay, so what's the boundaries down here in the quantitative thing? Sort of like, are we talking about everyone who will ever use this product? Or are we talking about everyone in the company? Or are we talking about actually everyone just in this department or division and so on? This is the first route. And then you say, right, okay, so what's the boundaries of this? Are we dealing with all of the output of the company? So is it everything we ever make? Or are we dealing with just this sort of bit for this division? Or are we dealing with just this section and so on? So the kind of like the boundaries you put around it yourself help you go, right, so therefore, what does sketch mean in this circumstance? What does scaffold mean in this circumstance? What does structure? Because if you're working on, if you're shipping a massive kind of like all user platform, and this affects everyone, you go, well, the structure then is a very robust system that works for all users and everything is out there. If you're saying, well, this is just a beta test, and you go, right, well, we can form the beta test Zenko map essentially, and structure there is just something that allows enough people to use the minimum viable products and give us feedback on the thing that's actually there. So so actually, to RJ's point, the kind of that argument and discussion about what counts as sketch, what counts as scaffold, what counts as structure, is very much part of the form, I think. And then there's another part within that. So if you think about those different layers and different levels as well, and so you see in here, the map is fractal. So you can sort of, so you can treat that in here, that's a mini Zenko map. So you go, notionally, it's just the sketch. So it's just a kind of like, it's our department deciding on the bounds of sort of like what we want to do. And you go, well, actually, then it will be 2 people start here. And then they might ask these 5 people here. And then the whole department has to sort of have a view by there. And therefore, the structure here is actually only the presentation to the rest of the organization. So it's not that big. So it becomes this fractal thing that can go from, I don't know, 5 days up to 5 years.
Wonderful. Let's just see if there's any more come in. Doing all kinds of things at once here at IA Towers. I'm sure there's more discussion to be had either in the Miro board or on the chat stream. But for right now, we'll say thank you very much to John Willshire.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
What a wonderful day. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take our last little break. We're going to be back at 4:10 with our closing keynote from Peter Morville and our final giveaway. So we'll see you then.